What's up, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer, Tyler Horka, and Jack Soble live on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for this week's Notre Dame Six-Pack Show, where we take 6 topics and have 6 minutes to discuss each of them, of course, related to Notre Dame athletics. We got 5 football topics, and then we'll wrap up the show talking some Notre Dame hoops. We got Tyler Horka and Jack Soble outside. Beautiful day in South Bend, 75 degrees and sunny. Absolutely love to see it. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. If you listen to this as a podcast, appreciate you as well. Please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. Boys, I trust that you're well, so we're just going to dive into today's show. I'm going to start this with Jack, and I mean this with all due respect. You're our resident nerd and rules expert kind of guy. So first of all, tell me what this house settlement thing even is, because I haven't really been following this news. For my job, I'm more about like who's visiting and committing versus like all of this legal jargon. So tell us about the house settlement, and then we'll after that, how does it impact Notre Dame?
So I will, and Ryan Rolls right. I can't get my shirt to not wrinkle right now. I'm in shambles, but I'll go quickly because Tyler wrote the feature on this. So I'll kind of go into the bare bones basics before we can get into Notre Dame impact with Tyler. So the House versus NCAA settlement, and in very, very basic terms, you can read Tyler's feature later this summer or any of On3's Pete Noakos' reporting on the subject. But a bunch of former athletes sued the NCAA for back pay for money lost from NIL payments that they would have had if NIL was legal, which the courts basically said that it should have been. So the NCAA and the member conferences settled, which is why you hear so much about the settlement. And push comes to shove, this has ushered in the revenue sharing era of college sports. So teams are now permitted to pay players directly with a salary cap that is $20.5 million per athletics or for athletics. And I think about $13 to $16 million is what Power 4 football programs are going to have to spend on players. And Notre Dame has said it will hit that cap. The other thing that came about recently is that the roster limit now, the 85-man scholarship limit for football teams is no more. That is a thing of the past. Forget the number 85 ever existed. It is now a 105-man roster cap, and that includes walk-ons, which Notre Dame has said it will still have. The thing that came about recently is that current players are grandfathered in to that cap. So even though Notre Dame did not cut anybody, they won't have to, because those players will be allowed to stay with the team for the duration of their careers.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of work backwards here. Start with the grandfathering in thing. That was actually a huge deal for Notre Dame, and you could tell it was that way, Jack, because when we talked to Marcus Freeman a couple of weeks ago and I asked him about this house settlement, he said that was the domino that he wanted to get to fall. And lo and behold, Notre Dame was the school, and I'm not surprised by this either. They usually tend to do the right thing when it comes to stuff that affects college football at large like this. They wanted that grandfathering in of walk-ons because the Wapu Nation thing at Notre Dame, I feel like it's stronger than at a lot of other places. And quite frankly, I believe that Notre Dame is fine living in the scholarship range that it's at right now, which is like mid-90s. And I believe there's actually another big school. It might be Ohio State. When I was doing my research for the article that you mentioned that's going to come out in July, it's going to hit the newsstands first, literally, because we still do that at Blue and Gold, and we're cool like that, where you can literally read a physical copy of this feature before you'll be able to read it online. Go to bluegoldonline.com to get your copy of that in the mail. Anyway, yeah, Notre Dame's fine with it because they're in the mid-90s, and that means they can have 10, 12 walk-ons right now, which is, in fact, probably a lower number than there's been in the past. And that's why you saw guys like Zach Yoakum leave. I believe there were probably, Jack, 3 to 5 other walk-ons that transferred away from Notre Dame this offseason?
Correct, but again, they didn't have to cut anybody, so that wasn't related to the roster caps.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna have your walk-ons at Notre Dame. You're gonna have your grandfathered in walk-ons. That's a big deal. And then I think another big part of this is you're still going to have NIL. And like Notre Dame has, quite frankly, done pretty well in the NIL space. Like Jeremiah Love, for instance, bought his mom a Porsche, and he wasn't very shy to say that. And he's a pretty shy guy. There's another feature that you should read. Jack wrote a really good story on Jeremiah Love that'll be coming out in the preview. But like, if you're good enough to play football, Marcus Freeman has said this time and again, you're going to get your NIL deals on the side. And that's always been the case in the NIL era, if you will. Now, in the revenue sharing era, part of this house settlement is if you're getting any substantial NIL deal, like through a third party, which Notre Dame has the Rally Collective, that's going to be subject to a clearinghouse approval. And that could cause a whole lot of chaos. And the NIL era has always been chaos. Like, who's to say what NIL deals should be approved by this clearinghouse, which ones should not? If these NIL deals, like, for example, Notre Dame was doing the charity thing with Friends of the University of Notre Dame fund. Like, if there's any shady stuff going on there, this clearinghouse is supposed to, figure that out and sniff that out and say, nope, this can't happen. There's a lot of shady stuff going on at other places before it's going on at Notre Dame. So I think that's going to be a can of worms. But for Notre Dame's purposes, the scholarship limit, the NIL thing, the $20.5 million that you've got to work with, I think Pete Pavakwa's fine with it. Marcus Freeman is fine with it. And Notre Dame's in a pretty good spot to be a power player in the revenue sharing era, if you will.
Real quick, a couple ways this could impact roster management. Number one, you're going to have to be really, really careful about your player evaluations, because if you're paying a 5-star recruit, like Miami's paying Jackson Cantwell, the 5-star offensive tackle, like $2.5 million, that guy better be good, and he better be good right away, because he's getting paid a not insignificant portion of the salary cap. And if he's not good and he can't play, that's money that's dead for the season. So that's one way it'll affect roster management. The other way is, like, you're going to need to be careful, like, where you put your roster depth. Like, teams used to have, like, when you could have as many walk-ins as you want, you had like third string long snappers and second string punters, and now you're just going to have to train like a linebacker or a tight end to play long snappers, because that you're going to want to allocate your roster depth somewhere else.
Do you guys have any other thoughts on this before we move on?
Not really. I mean, there's just so much that's still unknown, and that needs to be figured out.
I think that's the big piece, is like everyone was waiting for this to get signed off on. Like Judge Claudia Wilkin has one of the most famous signatures going right now, but there's still so much to answer with this. And I'm fascinated by the NIL part, because Jack mentioned that player who's getting $2.5 million. These schools are going to be trying to weasel in and out of a maze, trying to get that to come from boosters, because they do not want that coming out of the piece of the pie that's the $20.5 million.
Does this like go into effect now?
July 1st is when you start paying the players.
Okay.
By the way, one thing I want to address, a comment from Ryan Roll that says we'd be screwed if Captain Jack, I assume that means Swarbrick and not me, was still in charge. I actually disagree with that. I think Swarbrick did a pretty good job of helping usher Notre Dame into this new era of college sports.
Quite frankly, I think a lot of Pete Pavakwa's go-to moves are like handed down from Jack Swarbrick, to be completely honest with you. He's like a disciple of Swarbrick.
Okay. Good stuff. Maybe after OV season gets a little slower, I'll have to talk to some folks on the Notre Dame side of things about like how this impacts high school recruiting, which is obviously something that is a big part of my job. But we'll move on. You guys got to meet with Notre Dame's 2 offensive coordinators this week. We'll start with Chris Ash. Were both of you on that interview?
Yes, both of us, along with Irish Sports Daily's Matt Freeman.
Tyler?
Yeah, so I don't know how you want to do this, Jack, but maybe I'll just say what I thought was enlightening out of the Chris Ash conversation.
Yeah, we go like topic by topic here.
Yeah. So basically the big thing, the first thing is he is really adamant, isn't he, about this being Notre Dame's defense. Like this is not a Chris Ash defense. This is Notre Dame's defense. You heard it when he came in. I think we talked to him in like February or March for the first time. And now 3 months later, you get a whole slate of spring practices in there. And he's still saying, yeah, these guys are set up for success. Like they did it last year. They're going to keep doing it this year. Like really good defense, really good team. But one of the bigger tweaks that he is making, and he kind of explained it to us, is why Viper is basically getting phased out, and like the term and really the position, because Notre Dame's going to be asking both of its defensive ends on the field at the same time to kind of do a lot of the same things. Obviously, when you put two guys out there, one guy's going to be trying to do one thing, the other going to be trying to do another, but that could change. And I think Marcus Freeman used the word interchangeable in our conversation a couple of weeks ago. And that's what it kind of sounded like when Chris Ash was asked. I'll just read a quick quote on all this. He says, you look at the players, is there a difference in their ability? Are you asking guys to do something different? When we really looked at last season and what we're looking to do, no, there's not. There are a lot of similar abilities there. Then you look at how can you get lined up quickly against teams that go really fast. Going left and right is the easiest thing to do. They don't have to worry about where's the field, where's the boundary, what's the open side, the closed side. So that's another part of it. So like modern football, basically, positionless basketball has become a buzz term. Like you can kind of do some of the same stuff in football. It's just like put your athletes on the field, allow them to make big time play. So I think those are the two biggest things for me from Ash is that this is Notre Dame's defense, but hey, if Chris Ash can tweak it a little bit here and there, he's going to do that. And the Viper is a example of that.
I think it's very pronounced. You mentioned positionless football, like on third down and third and pass, where like you get your four best pass rushers on the field and you don't much care where they line up. I like this a lot. I think it speaks to, you mentioned like Chris Ash looking to enhance. A wise person once told me that this is the way we've always done it is never a good reason to do something. And I think Chris Ash rightly looked at the situation where it's like Burnham has played both. Bryce Young can probably play both. Tui Halamaka can play both. Boubacar Traore, Botello are big enough to play both. It's like then why bother having Viper and defensive end at all? It'll allow Notre Dame to get the two best edge rushers it thinks can be on the field at all times, but you obviously have to roll them through a good amount. But this opens the door to a Botello Traore starting lineup, which I'm not sure we'll necessarily have. I think Bryce Young and Josh Burnham will have a lot to say about that, but it's possible. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes in fall camp. Anything else interesting? I'm sure there was other interesting stuff from Ash this week. Anything that comes to your mind?
Yeah, we asked him about a couple of players in particular. Surprise! We're working on features on those guys. There's another plug. We'll be able to roll out these features to you guys in about a month. But it sounds like he really loves what he's got in Drake Bowen, and Chris Ash is not afraid that Bowen won't be able to become this vocal leader or the guy that you look to in that room. Not just that room, because, I mean, if you're the Mike linebacker, you're kind of in the middle of it all. Drake Bowen is the guy that Chris Ash wants to be in the middle of it all. And then I asked him about Leonard Moore for the story that I was working on, and I was like, hey, how long did it take for you to know that he's a dude? Because this offseason has really been like dominated by, hey, Leonard Moore is amazing type of headlines. And I wanted to get it from a guy who wasn't here for the genesis of that last fall. Chris Ash was not. It's not like he was living through real time of Leonard Moore becoming this guy, right? And he said, yeah, 3-4 plays on film. I saw him and I was like, that is the prototypical corner. He basically gave if you were to make a boundary corner in a lab remark, then it would look like Leonard Moore, just like the range, the toughness. He kind of rambled on here. He said he's long, he's athletic, he's quick, he's fast, he's tough, practices extremely hard, consistently doing the right things. And then I thought was really cool. He said when he takes a chance, it's usually to make a play, and that's usually what he does. So the fact that we probably get 2 more years of that from Leonard Moore, Chris Ash realizes it, and I think it's all exciting for us to realize it as well.
Yeah. Other than that, he's got tons of flaws. The other player that Ash was asked about that he said something interesting about was Tay Johnson. Yeah. And man, this safety competition is a top of the board subject for fall camp because you got 3 guys in Jalen Stroman, Luke Talich, and Tay Johnson for 2 spots who are all, I think, more than capable of playing. About Johnson, he said he was getting his hands on balls, and you can see him breaking out of the middle. I'm like, who the hell is this? That's when I really started to figure out who he was. He just all spring just flashed and made plays. That's along the lines with what we've been hearing and seeing from Tay Johnson so far. I mean, he's going to contribute to this defense sooner than later, and sooner might be as early as September.
Jack. Intel from Mike Denbrock. What were we'll start with Jack this time. What were some of the key things that you guys learned from the offense coordinator?
So to understand Denbrock's rhetoric, in terms of just like big picture, you kind of have to go back to last year when like this time last year, he was saying like, this is going to take a while. We're not going to be what we are late in the season, early in the season. Like it's a process. Like he was constantly trying to lower expectations. And obviously he was right about that. He didn't think it would cause them to lose to Northern Illinois, but it was a process and it took a while for them to really get their feet under them. This year, he is singing a very different tune right now. I asked him, like, he kind of mentioned this in the spring, and I asked him what he accomplished this spring that he couldn't last spring. And he said, you go into year 2, it's almost like you're starting on second base because they laid the foundation last year. He said they're so much farther along at this point in preparation for the season. And he's saying he made some bold claims about the offense. He said he doesn't see an area where Notre Dame shouldn't be better. He said it's an exciting time for them offensively. Mike Denbrock, in the year that we've covered him, he does not BS us. Like he's going to tell us like it is. And he's really excited about where this offense is heading right now.
Yeah, that was the big one for me. I even put it out there on social media. Like when you're sitting with these guys for the 20 minutes that we got, which is awesome, especially when it's in a small group setting like it was, there's something that sticks out and like stands out. That when he said that, I was like, he doesn't have to say that. And generally he doesn't, like he won't say that. So I genuinely feel like he believes that this offense is going to take a huge step forward in the second year of his third stint in South Bend now, which is pretty crazy.
Third, yeah.
A lot of quarterback talk, looking back through what we talked to him about. And like, I don't know about you, Jack, but I got a good sense that he feels comfortable with the two guys that are competing for Notre Dame's starting job and CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie. And it's not like he wasn't comfortable with Riley Leonard last year. Like obviously it got to a point where that was his guy and Notre Dame, went along for that ride all the way to the national championship with Riley Leonard. But this year I kind of framed my questions to him with the preface of, you actually got to see whoever it is. It's kind of weird that you don't know who it is in the moment, but like who's going to start for you in week 1 at Miami? You saw that guy go through 15 practices, whether it is going to be Carr or whether it is going to be Minchie. Last year with Leonard, you didn't get to see that. And it's different because you saw him start 21 games at Duke. But Jack, I felt like a genuine hesitance almost last year from Denbrock, and you kind of alluded to it and him saying, hey, this is going to be a work in progress. I think so much of that was because the quarterback thing needed to get on solid footing, literally. Like Riley Leonard needed to heal that ankle. It is on solid footing right now, and there's a little bit of I don't want to say skepticism or whatever. Like the unknown element is there with Carr and Minchie, but he also found out a lot about these guys in the spring, and I think it has him feeling pretty good going into the summer and the fall.
He did also say, like, whoever wins the job, they're going to kind of have to figure out whether or not they have to protect him schematically or they can just let it rip. And, who they think they can just let it rip is going to be, obviously a big go a long way towards determining who wins the job. Some personnel notes. I asked him who he looks at like as a breakout player. Like he looked at Jeremiah Love last year. He said, he reiterated, he said this before, but he really feels conviction that Eli Raridan is going to have a huge season. He said he's coming into his own fully healthy, really playing good football. That's not the first time we've heard that from Denbrock, but that's significant. Notre Dame could really use a big season from Eli Raridan, and Denbrock sounds awfully convinced that it's going to finally happen for number 9. He also said a healthy Jordan Faison should be a problem for defenses. He likes some of the young receivers. And again, this is a big storyline for the summer and fall camp. It's like 5 receivers, 2 to 3 spots. And there's going to be some talented receivers who really have to compete for a job because they're not displacing the top 4 of Fields, Greathouse, Pauling, and Faison. He also said that Jeremiah Love's next step in his development is getting more involved as a receiver, which is, again, kind of in line with what we heard from Jawan Sider in spring practice, in that, like, the coaching staff seems to think that they did not do a good enough job of getting Love the matchups that he needs as a receiver. And I think that's going to be a big point of emphasis heading into the season.
Some more personnel notes. Obviously, he had great things to say about Charles Jagasaw. Not surprised. It was a short quote about Ashton Craig, and you might have even asked this question, Jack.
I think it was Matt.
But it was Matt. But it was a pretty strong question or response about Ashton Craig. He dropped the old "good Lord willing" that like they're just hoping Ashton Craig stays healthy and is the centerpiece. Like because last year that season could go totally different if Pat Coogan doesn't step in and play as well as he did at center. You lose Ashton Craig, and I guarantee you, in that moment, there were some people on that coaching staff thinking, "Oh gosh, like." We didn't know what we were going to have at tackles, and now you're telling me we're losing our starting center. So interested to see what Craig does in a whole season because it sounds like Denbrock thinks it could be quite a lot. And then, yeah, I asked him about Jaden Greathouse as well, and it like everything is coming back the same on Greathouse. It seems like this guy is going to be more the guy that you saw in January and less the guy that was, I don't want to say invisible, but wasn't tearing it up September through November.
It is fascinating, real quick. It is fascinating to kind of look back and remember at week 3 of last year when we entered the season. Pretty sure that Notre Dame had 3 good offensive linemen, and then they were all gone by the end of week 3.
Yeah,
and they somehow thrived, which is just a phenomenal coaching job on their part.
All right, it says the next 2 are 5 to watch on defense, but it's supposed to be an O on the second one. But we will we'll start with defense. Jack, like. Who wrote the defense story?
Tyler did. So this is like five defensive players who need good summers.
Yeah, I think we just go one by one, offering our comments on them. But like I said, like Mike said, I wrote this article and Jack did the offensive version. So yeah, let's just go one by one. My first one was Jalen Stroman. I think it's pretty obvious. He wasn't able to practice for a lot of the spring or all of the spring because he. What is it, a clavicle or a shoulder or something? Something you can't play football with if you're trying to be a safety and go out there and make tackles and whatnot. Look, man, like he's got to show the coaching staff, or not even the coaching staff as much as his teammates, like, hey, I'm coming in from Virginia Tech. I've played a lot of football there, and I'm going to be a dude here. I'm going to be a stud here. Wasn't able to make that impression in the spring. I think it's very imperative that he makes it in the summer.
I think the big thing that separates Stroman and Hurd is that like Hurd was a good college player, but he was never an NFL prospect. I think it was Mike who reported that Notre Dame acquired Stroman thinking like if he didn't get hurt, then there's a good chance he'd be in the NFL right now. So I think that's an important distinction, but it's also worth noting that, everyone expected Hurd to start and Schuler passed him up. I don't know if if Tallacher or Johnson really blew the coaching staff away like Schuler did last year. I mean, like, it's important to remember like how unequivocally awesome Schuler was last spring and how he made it so difficult for anyone to take that job. I don't know that Talich and Johnson quite did that, but you're right. Stroman needs a big summer.
Yeah. With those other two, it's almost like if it wasn't going to be Hurd, I was adamant that it was going to be Schuler, and then it ended up being Schuler.
Yeah.
The Stroman thing is like, well, if it's not Stroman, it can be Talich or it can be Johnson. Those are probably the only 2 that have a real shot, but just adding that one extra guy, I think makes it a little different there for sure. Jalen Sneed is my number 2 here. We do the hype train with him every single offseason. We're doing it again. He's bigger than ever. He has a shot to play like a legit inside position and hold on to it as a starter for really the first time ever. So show your teammates that you're the dude. Because like, I'm just going to throw this out there. It's a little bit of a weird dynamic that it almost feels like Drake Bowen is the eldest statesman in that Notre Dame linebacker unit because everyone's talking about him so highly this offseason, and rightfully so. But Jalen Sneed's actually the only senior, and he's a year older than Bowen. So be that guy, Jalen, and like show your teammates this is going to be your best year of Notre Dame football ever.
It's going to be hard to keep Billy Amawasa out of the starting lineup, but Sneed will give it his best shot.
Yeah, I think it will be too. Other end of the spectrum from Jalen Sneed, I put Madden Faramo on there because I think you and I both agree, Jack, that like it didn't quite come off that he is going to be as must play as KVA was at this time last year. And I think a lot of people thought that would be the case. So if that is what we're thinking about Faramo right now, is that not necessarily a project, but needs to kind of get some things down a little bit better than he had them in the spring. now's a great time to start doing that in the summer, going into fall camp. So, like I said, on the opposite spectrum of the Snead thing, this is a freshman who needs to start balling out this summer.
Yeah, I think we should note that it's going to be really hard to break into this linebacker rotation right now. There's 4 guys who just played a lot of football last year. Actually, so here's how much football Notre Dame played last year. Schuler actually has more career snaps than Stroman, even though Stroman is entering his 5th season. Schuler is really just entering his 2nd of playing real football. So I thought that that is how much football these linebackers played last year. So it's going to be hard if he needs a year of development. Don't panic. That doesn't say anything about his long-term prospects.
Yeah, Schuler played 50 snaps as a true freshman or something.
Something like
That's
that.
crazy.
Yeah.
2 more to go on the defensive guys who need big summers. I said cornerback Mark Zachary, who literally just got here 10 days ago or early June, whatever it is. You could put Dallas Golden there. A lot of people like him as a summer enrollee corner. My thought process here is Notre Dame always gets one of these summer DBs to just ball out. So if it's Zachary, if it's Golden, I don't care who it is. Have one of those guys have a really big summer, and then you're in good shape, because we've seen it before with Leonard Moore, Benjamin Morrison, whoever it may be. Notre Dame's got a track record of it. Why stop that now?
Yeah, he's got those Inspector Gadget arms. I like Zachary a lot. I think he's going to be a good player.
Yeah. The last one, I went with defensive tackle Elijah Hughes. And Jack, something you put on the message board recently, I completely agreed with. And I don't know if I responded to it and said this because you were responding to someone else, but you just kind of didn't notice him, for better or worse, coming in from USC in spring ball. But the coaches keep talking about the defensive tackle rotation as if there's going to be 4 or 5 guys there. He needs to be one of those. So I think he needs to have a big summer.
Talking to sources at Notre Dame, the Hughes one is perfect. They kind of feel the same. He's coming along, had a good spring, not a great spring, but has a huge summer ahead. Dallas Golden saw at Irish Invasion, thought he looked pretty good. I talked to him for a second. He said that he had a great off-season training for corner, because you got to remember with Dallas Golden, it's more a running back and a receiver at the high school level. So he's transitioning to corner full time. Jack, I know it says 5 to watch defense, but I'm
that's if you really squint, it's an O.
Holy airball, Mike. 5 to watch on offense. Who needs to have a huge summer, Jack?
Hey, Mike, what's the word that goes between holy and airball?
What is the word that goes between holy?
I've never seen that phrase without a word in between. Anyway, honorable mention all the young receivers for the reason I talked about before. They didn't make the article, but just wanted to say, obviously the summer is going to go a long way towards determining who makes the rotation. Number 1 on my list, this is number 1. It's not very close, is a tight end James Flanagan, the freshman coming in. Every so often you find yourself in a position where you need a freshman to help in year 1. I think that's the position. No disrespect to the tight ends behind Raridan right now, but it would be awfully helpful if Flanagan comes in. And to be fair, the last time they're in this position, it was finding a number 4 cornerback last year, and that worked out pretty well, all things considered. But Flanagan's a guy he's a freak athlete, fascinating athlete. He was a hockey player in high school up near somewhere in Wisconsin. We don't need to say the name of the town. He was a track star, which you often hear about wide receivers, but you do not hear about 240 or so pound tight ends. No, he's a freak athlete, and I'm excited to see him in the fall, but he'll need to hit the ground running some workouts.
The pessimist in me keeps saying, what if Eli Raridan doesn't have that breakout season that we're all expecting, just because it's his job, right? He is tight end 1 for this team right now, with Cooper Flanagan still coming back from the Achilles. What if it just looks the same as it has for Eli Raridan? I think James Flanagan might need to be a guy in year 1, and it's happened for Notre Dame tight ends before. And he's got it, like you said, Jack, the athleticism galore to come in and be a guy right away. I've been banging the James Flanagan drum for a while now, and I think that's a really good pick.
Second one is obvious, as Mike, we got to get the clock back and fired up. CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie obviously need big summers. I think this summer is important from a leadership standpoint, because who is galvanizing the guys for private, not private, but workouts independent of the coaches, who's organizing those. who's buying the lineman dinner, all that good stuff. That's something the coaches are going to be keeping a close eye on. And I think even though Marcus Freeman will never admit it, I don't because he doesn't want to put a public timeline on the competition. If I'm Marcus Freeman, I do not want this thing to last more than 10 days, 14 days into fall camp. I want to settle on a starter as soon as possible. Obviously, you're not going to do that until someone has emerged, but you want someone to emerge as soon as possible. So you're going to be watching closely to see what happens this summer.
On this note, it was from an account that need not be named. I can't even remember what it was. One of the accounts that puts out social media stuff on Notre Dame. Did you see the video of I'm assuming it was a Shields Hall construction worker, filming Notre Dame's private practice? What do you call them? A team player led?
I did not see. I must have that account muted. You'll need to send me that.
I forget what account it was, to be completely honest, but it was legit a short video of the player led stuff. I just thought that was fascinating. I was like, wow, you're literally seeing it unfold there. Yes, I do agree. Those sessions right there are going to be huge. And the coaches probably get so much player feedback from those because, I'm coming to my office, let's talk about what CJ Carr did on this football field with you guys today. And then the floor is open there. One thing that I will note on that, and this is just what I observed, you could see it at Irish Invasion on Friday. I think that CJ Carr has a little bit more of a outward persona to him than Kenny Minchey. I think Kenny Minchey is a little bit more reserved, quiet. You can kind of hear it in the interviews that we do with these guys too. So not saying that's going to be the deciding factor in this race, but it will be a factor.
Well, I mean, what you just said is a big reason why I and you and everyone else on the beat and nationally is assuming that Carr is going to win this competition because, well, it's not like Minchey isn't a leader. It's just that, sorry, I'm getting a call.
He's a popular guy, Jack Soble.
Yeah. So it's not like Minchey isn't a leader, but he is. Carr has shown more vocal leadership than Minchey throughout his career, and really even while he was organizing the class. I think that's important. So yeah, again, Minchey has proven the team wrong on that front before. So we'll see if he keeps.
And the guys really like Minchey too.
He's absolutely a locker room favorite for sure. Yeah. Real quick, Malachi Fields is another name I have on this list. Reasons are pretty obvious. He wasn't here in spring practice. I think they would have loved to get him here in spring practice to develop chemistry with those quarterbacks. And we saw the consequences of not having quarterbacks and wide receivers on the same page on September 7th last year. So he's going to need to spend some time with Carr Minchey on the field.
Get those reps in because this might be Notre Dame's best wide receiver. That is a legit possibility. So start getting that assimilation going for sure.
Last one, kind of an under the radar pick, center Joe Otting. I think that a big loss for Notre Dame this season was Pat Coogan because you need a backup center. And while I don't think Coogan would have started over Ashton Craig, he was obviously a more than capable center. He was a really good center for Notre Dame last year. So Otting his developing. I don't know how much I trust 6'8" Sullivan Absher, who'd never snapped before spring practice at center. I think Otting's issue in the past that he hasn't been big or strong enough, but he certainly looks the part in spring practice. He's up to 295 or something right now. So it's a big summer for him in the weight room because I think it would be really helpful for Notre Dame's offensive line depth if he really grabbed that backup center role, allowed Absher to focus on guard. I think Absher is the first guard off the bench on either spot. And at that point, your offensive line depth is in a really good spot.
They've been pouring a lot into Joe Otting from what I can tell from practices. They want him to be able to be a trusted guy at center. So, yeah, big summer for him.
It would really help them if he did, yeah.
All right, let's change this in.
He's on his A game tonight, Mike.
I don't know. It was worse than that.
Is he okay?
I don't know. I don't know.
Am I okay? They on the recruiting beat right now.
A little bit. I don't know what's worse, that slip up or Jack taking a phone call or getting a phone call.
It's
It's
hard.
not
I
our
don't know.
cleanest show, but hey, it's June 10th. We'll
Yeah.
survive.
First official show of summer with a football preview deadline gone.
Jack, talk to us about the hoops commitments on the men's side. And then Tyler, I know you've been writing a ton on women's basketball, so maybe you can touch on what's been going on with Neil Ivy's program.
Yep.
Yes. Very exciting 2-day stretch for Notre Dame men's basketball, something that we knew, at least I knew, was going to happen, but I did not know was going to happen at this time. Jonathan Sanderson, who I believe is the number 51 player in the On3 industry ranking, 6'2" point guard out of LaLue and Laporte. He's going to play there in his senior year. He's from Michigan because his dad, John Sanderson, was a longtime Michigan basketball strength coach, a really strong reputation there. Notre Dame hired him. He spent a season at Vanderbilt where he helped Vanderbilt make the tournament for the first time since I think 2017. Notre Dame hired him as their men's basketball strength coach. From what I hear, he's already having a pretty big impact on the Irish this spring and summer. But along with him came his son, who is a hot shooting point guard, really good at operating the pick and roll. Not great positional size at 6'2", but I think he makes up for a lot of that with his athleticism, ability to run an offense, and ability to make shots from anywhere off the court, whether or on the court, whether off the dribble or with his jumper. He's a really good get. Sanderson's the Sandersons, John and Jen, Jonathan Sanderson's parents, the strength coach John, his wife Jen, are the legal guardians of Gan Erdine Solongo, who is a center. On3 is the only one who has rated him. They rated him number 99 in the class. He's relatively new to basketball. He's the son of an Irish father and a Mongolian mother, making him a dual citizen of Ireland and Mongolia. He moved to America from Mongolia when he was about 15. Shortly after he started playing basketball, he's relatively new to the sport, but this guy is a true 7-footer. He is athletic. He is nimble. He can finish lobs. You see on this tape, there's a lot of Sanderson to Solongo lobs in there. He's got obvious defensive potential. And I can tell you that even though he doesn't have a rating from a lot of places, like Notre Dame absolutely loves this kid. They think his stock is going to skyrocket at a high profile school like LaLue. So again, we will see what happens with the team this fall and winter. We're going to learn more about that this summer. Obviously, it's a big year for Micah Shrewsbury and company, but this is a great start to the 2026 class on the high school recruiting trail, and Notre Dame is thrilled to get Sanderson and Solongo into the fold.
All right, not a lot of recruiting to talk about on the Notre Dame women's basketball side, which I know brings a frown to a lot of people's faces because that's what needs to happen for this program. And I guess I'll dive right into that part of it. I think it was Sunday, the women's account, social media, just kind of dropped a graphic of names and numbers and said, basically, like, here's our squad. So I asked the source, like, hey, does this mean there's no more additions? It's pretty late in the game to get an addition. I mean, these girls are already back on campus. They've been working out and practicing for a week now, over a week. But you would maybe hope there's a little surprise there, like someone arrives late in the summer. Not happening. Notre Dame is going into the season with 11 players on the roster, and that's including walk-ons. That's including the one incoming true freshman, Leah Macy, whose knee is still in the midst of recovery, let's call it. I think she suffered the injury in the very last game of her season. So that tells you that she's not very far into that rehab process, which is not great. We've seen just last season, KK Bransford, Kylie Watson. There's been players on this team just say, hey, I'll take the redshirt season. I'm not playing at all. Leah Macy, I think, is a fear that might be the case for her. So then you look at what you do have. It's basically Hannah Hidalgo and whoever else. You do have Bransford. You have Kassan Prosper, who's coming back. Those are the only three returning players from last year's team that went to the Sweet 16 and lost for the fourth year in a row, I believe it was. So, look, with this roster, quite frankly, if the Irish got into the Sweet 16 again in 10 months, whatever it is, huge win, honestly, because you took a player from Wake Forest that is like fringe starter bench player in Malaya Cows. You took a player from Kansas State, that's the same exact thing, fringe bench start. They might have to start at Notre Dame, and that's like almost an unfathomable position for this program to be in, being that they had 3 WNBA draft picks on the roster last year. They still had Hannah Hidalgo on the roster. You had Olivia Miles, who's an All-American, who's obviously at TCU now. Like, what you had last year compared to what you have this year, first of all, you don't have any more numbers than you had last year, and that's always been the issue. And second of all, the players, quite frankly, are not the same caliber. Like, I'm not here to bash on anybody, but Malaya Cowles is not Leah Tu King. And Gisela Sanchez is not even Liza Carlin, probably. Like, Liza Carlin was a very good player at Marquette. So it's dire times, but the one good nugget that I can give you on the Notre Dame women's basketball front is that they are still recruiting the heck out of the 2026 class. You already have a commit in that class who's a top 30 player. You have somebody who is in the top 10 of the 2026 class who listed Notre Dame as one of her 10 finalists. There's a 4-star from Texas who is visiting Notre Dame for a football game in October. So, like, if you can get that solid 2026 class and make whatever you can out of the 25-26 season, this program might not be dead. Like, it can kind of resurrect and start going back up again. But right now, all things considered, it is down from last year, and there's no other way to say that.
Reading your article where you kind of went through every player on the roster, the impression I got with a lot of them was like, good player, Notre Dame's probably going to ask her to do more than she should.
Yep. And you can say that for like 4 to 5 players, which is a scary spot to be in.
Folks who are just joining us, rewind, watch from the beginning of the show. Some great stuff from Jack and Tyler. We'll be live tomorrow night, myself and Tim Hyde, talking about some Notre Dame football and recruiting. I feel like Tim's going to troll me a good bit, so just tune in for that alone. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel. If you are new, go to bluegoldonline.com to order your copy of the Notre Dame Football Preview Magazine. 160 pages. They're glossy. They're awesome. It's going to be your Bible for Notre Dame football and even a little bit of recruiting for the summer and into the fall. So make sure you check that out, bluegoldonline.com. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in to this week's Notre Dame Six-Pack Show, and we'll catch you next time.